The first thing I thought of, Joe, I think you mentioned it to Brad, the schedule, the Eagles' schedule. I don't know if we make enough of the schedule before the season. Now, I'm going to make a bigger deal of it. Think about the NFC East, right? If you go back before the season, the projected strength of schedule, the NFC East, I believe, was what? Like all four at the bottom or the top, however you look at it, right? Like the easiest schedules. They all were elevated by it. The Eagles were a good team, really good team that was probably elevated to the best in the NFC. Cowboys good, elevated to what, 12 or 13 wins. Giants okay, and elevated to the playoffs. I don't know if the Commanders were below average and probably elevated to in the race the whole time. They got to pick on the AFC South. Like, I think with the extra game now, it plays even more of a role. If a division has the easiest projected strength of schedule, that's where the playoff teams are coming from. That's where the number one seed might come from. It really played a big deal this year. I think it could again as we move forward, especially if there's a bad division in the other conference that you get to face.
Yeah, but don't you think we were wrong? But don't you think we were wrong on a lot of it? And I do agree with you that we talk a lot about it because there's good reason. You should talk a lot about it. It ends up being a huge factor in the end. But as you're talking, the one thing that jumps out to me is the team that was lifting the Lombardi Trophy last night going into the year. They were projected to have the toughest schedule in the NFL, and they did not.
Right.
And everybody thought they were going to be in one of the toughest divisions. They were not, because Russell Wilson sucked, and we don't know if he's ever going to be back. The Raiders not as good as some projected. So that vaunted AFC West, yes, the Chargers are good. People thought they were going to be better than what they did, but overall they did have a pretty good season, as much as people hated Staley. But some of that schedule projection stuff we're just wrong on. We thought the AFC West was going to be tougher. We thought the NFC East was going to be softer, and we were wrong on that. And some we were right on. I mean, we knew that the NFC South and the AFC South were going to be hot garbage, and they were. So I think it's a mix. It is tough to project. So going into next year, what's going to happen? Oh, the strength of schedule is so tough for the NFC East, right? Because they're going to be playing each other, and they're going to base that off last year's record, which I hate doing. That's not the way to take a look at strength of schedules.
So what's easier, do you think, to project? What do you feel stronger about? Who's going to be really good, or who's going to be really bad? Because that hit this year, right? The NFC East got to play the AFC South. The AFC South was terrible, and they just beat those teams all year and racked up wins. Is that it? So should we look right now at who plays the NFC South next year? Is that where our bets should be on? The team that plays that division?
I do think it's easier to project the teams that are going to be really bad. There's going to always be an outlier. You know, the Colts. Nobody thought the Colts would be this bad.
Right.
Nobody thought that the Broncos would be this bad. There are a couple of those. But I feel like, for the most part, you could see the Eagles making a jump, and they were getting steamed, and people like them. But Chiefs, look at best records. Chiefs, Eagles, Bills, Niners. The Vikings, a lot of people thought were going to make that jump. They did, whether you believe in it or not long term. Bottom line, they were 13-4 in the regular season. Bengals, Cowboys, Chargers, Ravens. Those are your double-digit win teams. Anything that shock you?
No.
Yeah, the bottom is easier though too, right? What did you say? So?
Yeah, bad. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The Giants, I don't know. We talked about how much we love that move with Daboll and how much better they were going to be. So 9-7-1, I don't know that that's shocking. And then in the end, Jaguars, Dolphins, Seahawks. I mean, there's just, like a dozen teams above or below, right in that 500 mix.
And it seems like the teams, it's easier to predict that they may not be as good. It's the ones that don't have the strong quarterback play or the question marks too. The ones that seem to have the better quarterbacks is kind of like, for me, maybe harder to bet against. But that was just something that stood out. I'm definitely, Paul and I were joking, I'm not doing the Derek Carr passing yards thing again.
No,
I don't know where he is. I have no idea where he is.
I'm just joking, but that's a season-long bet that I'm like, I don't know. I was thinking about it because we talk a lot about NFL futures, and I ended up having both the Chiefs and Eagles, and they weren't like super great odds, like 40-1 or anything like that. And of course, I think the Bengals, weren't they at one point when they made the Super Bowl, had really good odds, like 40-1 last year, didn't they?
Last year.
So I was trying to think, like, is there a point where I might want to consider doing a cutoff? Like, I think because we talk about doing, NFL futures to win the Super Bowl quite a bit, like I sometimes get a little carried away and force things. And maybe I don't want to look for super long shots, especially with some of these teams that could be really good for a while.
Well, Bengals were 100-1 last year.
Bengals. No, I know, but I mean,
conference. I think they were 100 for the conference at one point, 200 early on for the Super Bowl. But there are not a lot of stories, and we are. Do the two teams that had to bye? You think that's telling for the future, or did it just work out this way?
I mean, you could have made a case if Brock Purdy doesn't get hurt, if a side doesn't push Mahomes out of bounds, maybe it goes the other way, right? Maybe it's the Niners and the Bengals. I do think it's an advantage, right? One team has to play 3 playoff games and be on the road. One team plays 2 and at home. I think it's a thing. As far as Aaron's point about the underdogs or long shots, I don't know. Have we had a Super Bowl winner over 40-1 in the last 20 years? The Eagles, right? 2017 Eagles. It doesn't happen. Like, teams get there. The Bengals got there. Right, we have Cinderella stories, but it is interesting. The long shots to win the Super Bowl, it doesn't happen as much as we.
That's what I'm thinking. Like, I might not fire away as much and get too crazy with the long shots. I'm sure one will make it, and maybe it will happen. But I'm just kind of like, with all the strong quarterback play and how good some of these teams are, I'm kind of like, it's gonna take a lot to beat one of these teams. It's
maybe that's your lesson. Maybe that's your lesson. You take half that bet and you put it on the conference.
Yeah.
Well,
you did that, Joe, right? For baseball, for the Phillies, right? You had the NL. That was the smart bet you made. Like, you were on the Phillies. They obviously came up short in the World Series, but you made money because you took the NL, not just the World Series.
And then you're not in a position where you're freaking out. How am I going to hedge this? You don't have to deal with any of that. Like, okay, I won that bet, and I hope it's gravy, and we can do double on this one. So I think that's a pretty good lesson. If you truly believe in something that strong, not like picking 5 to 7 teams. If you have a strong stance on something, there's no shame in taking half the odds too. Lock that in. And if you believe in something, doesn't mean you have to double your bet. Like I said, you could put half and half if you believe in it. Let me go back to a lot of the information that you're going to hear is not correct. It feels like this is every year. Some of it's going to be correct, and some of it's going to be garbage. The Rihanna wearing pink, Stapleton over, that was garbage. And then the Rihanna song stuff, the set list, that was real. But I do feel like most years that's the case. Like, you have all this stuff that leaks, and it's never 100% right. And then you get on the stuff that's wrong.
Well, that's true, yeah. And the Super Bowl, there's just so much, right? It's overwhelming for 2 weeks. There's so many things.
I was just thinking, like, do I need to think about it more as this is one game? Because the 2 weeks building up to it, like, I think I should have dialed it back a little bit more, but it is just one game, and I don't want to go maybe as crazy as I did with, I don't want to say I forced it, because I did place more bets that I truly believed in compared to last year. I was just like firing away like too much. So I dialed it back this year, but now I'm kind of like, it is one game. And unless I have like a strong opinion, I think I'm just going to back off, because a lot of those props I did end up losing on. And then I started live betting to get out of it. And it was just like, you know what, this is just one game.
It is, but I think everybody does that. It's human nature. It's our last chance to bet football until the fall.
I did think that too. I'm like, YOLO, let's go crazy live betting.
It's so sad.
But
It's
I
depressing.
think sharp bettors do it too. Like that's why there's all these different angles, because they know we're gonna bet it all. I'm not mad at you if that's what it is. I do some of that too. I think we all do it.
Yeah.
Like we're just,
and it's
yeah,
fun. I'm not even mad because it's like, as Paul says, you paid for like tickets to the movie or whatever, you know, like I enjoyed it and the live betting, like it was a thrill. Like I needed the Eagles to get I needed Jalen Hurts to have one more rushing attempt and I lost the bet, but still it made it even more exciting because I was hoping they got the ball back in the end. And so you're right. Yeah. I guess I'm just kind of like, what can I do better?
I was thinking about this morning. I was looking at my account, and I had a pretty good year NFL. Like I hit a decent amount. Like I have more than I started with in September by a decent amount. I'm not going to have a real sweat again until September. Like I'm going to put a bunch of baseball futures in. I know in the next month, win totals. I have some futures on college basketball that I hope I hit, right? But like the next time I'm going to feel a sweat is September. Like I don't get into betting much regular season baseball. Like we do it for fun, and we've done it on the show together the last couple of years. But like the next time I'm going to care about bet in the game, is probably September. Maybe a couple golf tournaments. Whatever, 25-1 on Morikawa. But like it doesn't matter. It's different. It's over now until September. It's weird.
Zalatoris.
Yeah, and we just had. We had a great Thursday sweat with the awards. We had a great Sunday sweat with the Super Bowl, of course. Man, maybe there's also lessons learned with the awards, and we did very well with. I know you guys broke that down on Friday, but just hitting all of championship Sunday sides, hitting Super Bowl side, hitting Garrett Wilson, like the big stuff came in, and that's what I really care about. I do need to back off on props, which is tough to do when we sit here and talk about it for 3 hours every day.